being here got Sue. Sue lives in Kingston. She's not too far away from me. Let's just come on board.
Oh, right. Hello, Sue. Mary's on the panel. I've sent her an invite to speak because she's co-hosting with me tonight.
All right.
So I hope everything's all right. Because I think Mary's got the questions I haven't. We're just waiting for Ginger to join us. She's in Disneyland at the moment.
She didn't pack us with her.
I know. So we could have done Diabetes Chat from Disneyland. Maybe I'll suggest that to Tom for next year.
Oh yes.
So unfortunately, Tom's not with us tonight. He's travelling at the moment, so he might join us later, but he may not.
Well, I know that last week. Were you here at last week's Diabetes Chat?
Yes, I'm normally here for all of them.
Oh, right. Oh, right. Yeah, but where we were talking about the November 14th doing another 24-hour session.
Yeah.
All around the world, someone from, South Africa does that bit, and then something here, and that would be quite a bit of fun.
So it would be. And I'd just have to make sure I'd got the day before and the day after off work.
To recuperate.
Yeah. So, but I went out at the weekend and it wasn't supposed to be going to be a late night. I got back home at 4:15 Sunday morning.
Oh, lucky woman.
So it was a good evening there. So, Mary, can you hear me okay?
And she just turned off her mic.
Yeah.
Okay. I can hear you. You'll see me in here twice. I had to resurrect an old Twitter account because Tom's not here tonight, you see, so I'm trying to, I think I've got it streaming on YouTube.
Yeah, it did tell me it's coming up on YouTube too.
Oh, cool. Okay, it's working. It's working.
Woohoo!
Oh my gosh. And then I had a whole kind of like trip down memory lane in my other Twitter account, but I hadn't been in there since Johnny was diagnosed. It was so weird.
Oh, wow.
I know. But sure. Yeah. Oh.
So how are you anyway, Mary?
I'm good. How are you, Claire? I literally caught the end of that, like at 4 o'clock in the morning, Claire.
Yeah. I won't tell you who I was out with. I think you can probably guess.
I can. Like they're two bad influences. Yeah.
But the good thing, the thing was that we weren't actually going to the place that we always ended up at. Until we ended up there again on Saturday.
Oh dear. But you had a good night though.
Yeah, I had a good night. And then I drove home because I'd left my long-acting insulin at home and my tablets, and then drove back up there yesterday.
How long a drive is that then to have done that?
It's only about an hour and a half. Oh, my high alarm's going.
Oh, right, that's not so bad. I just thought it was a longer drive. Oh.
So yeah, it's about an hour and a half away. So it's not too bad.
That's okay.
But yeah. And it was a good weekend. It was just what I needed. So
sometimes you just need to let like your head feel a bit more free.
Yeah.
Any plans for this week?
Doctors tomorrow to have my dressing on my foot changed. Doctors on Thursday for another appointment for the results of my blood tests that were done last week. And that's all I got planned this week.
Doctors. It's that kind of a week. I'm glad you got out of the weekend then.
So and then
what about you, Anna? What about your week?
I actually took part in a Connected Emotions. It was a virtual slipstream event that we hold. Well, we've been holding ever since we had I don't want to say that word, pandemic. So, but yeah, it started on Friday night, and we had various speakers. A lot of the events that I was attending were to do with mental. We had some really good mental health sessions, but we also had we had people joining in from the UK, from South America, from Australia, New Zealand. It was really something else. It's really fun when we have people from all over the world. Well, you know how it is. Look, I'm in Canada. It's, people, we just love to talk about diabetes.
Sure do. Yeah. And it's so nice to talk about diabetes when you're talking about diabetes among other people who have diabetes, because nobody glazes over.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
There's only so much our loved ones can take, or our friends, and it just it's really freeing to be able to talk and listen and then add in and remember about things that you kind of just forgotten about yourself.
Well,
and
again,
if you need 2 rants.
Yeah, I just know for myself, I really didn't know anyone that was type 1 that, like you say, could understand me. And then when I started to want to go onto an insulin pump, and then I had to, and luckily the internet was around, and that was back in 2008. I needed help. How do I use this device I've just been handed? They give you a very short training session, and it was sort of done in French, and I'm not very good in French here in Canada. And that was it. I had this book, and like people like Ginger. This is how I met Ginger. Ginger and I've done some projects in the past, but I just had to learn off of everyone else. And luckily, I'm good with experimenting. So I'm still here. But no, it's always listening to how A does this with their diabetes, and I'm thinking, oh, could that work for me? And of course, I try to check with my medical team, but it just depends on where you live, right? How much up on things they are.
Yes, exactly. Like, and there are some things that are like some things that you know your limits as well, and you know where things are beyond your limits to ask them, and what are within your normal kind of changing things, trying things, like experimenting things. Like, yeah, I get you totally. When they're not as fully up to speed as you would like them to be too. Like, you sometimes dip your toe a tiny little bit ahead, and then a tiny little bit more ahead, and then you go and tell them, and then they're all delighted for you.
Right. No.
Yeah, because you teach, like I think we teach our medical teams like things as well as they teach us. So yeah,
Very true.
it's a good relationship when you've got a good relationship.
Yeah, it is.
I'm trying to think what has been going on this week. I didn't get on the chat last Monday with Ken and Helga. I was only listening in after. I just fell asleep on the couch. I've been so tired. And I'm repeating a bit.
Mark, are you okay? I can see you on co-host.
That's fine. That's fine. I was thinking, where's Claire? Where's Tom then? If Claire's on the diabetes chat thing, because it doesn't sound Tom like. Is Tom
No,
having
I'm
a
not
week
Tom.
off?
I'm me.
Is Tom having a week off? Is he?
He's travelling at the moment, so he might join us later.
I'm surprised he hasn't put it on in his car and on his headphones or something if he's on the train.
So, but no, we've got Ginger coming to join us in a bit. She's in Disneyland at the moment.
We're a little bit echoey. Is it? I'm just wondering if it's me or if it's what is it?
It doesn't sound echoey to me when you're talking.
It doesn't, Anna, does it not?
No, it's not. You're coming through very clear.
Okay, that's cool. Maybe it's just from my side, and I wonder. I might just check on YouTube and see if it's echoing there, just the way I'm.
No,
You-
if you've got two things going, that can happen. So
Yeah,
You
I know.
were
I'm gonna see if
echoing.
I need to. Do I need to?
echo, echo, echo.
I think what it is, if you look when somebody speaks, when it comes through, it's feeding back through somebody. So I don't know if it's me for some reason, because I'm just using my phone. So one would have thought that would cut it out.
And I've got a
It's on my
headset on.
phone as well.
Mm.
Who else have we got? Ellie. I don't know who we've got on YouTube because I can't actually see that. Anna,
Yes.
just mute your button a minute, please.
Hang on a second. So I was going to go into YouTube to see what's happening there, but I'm going to turn off my mic.
Well, can you hear any echoes now?
No. So talk again and let's see what's happening.
Testing 1, 2.
That's
No,
better,
sound.
Mary. Oh no, we've
Oh.
still got a bit of an echo.
So is it mine then?
Thinking it might be. I'm thinking it might be Anna. I'm not sure.
Okay, let me turn, because I've just got a headset on, so it could be it. So hang on a second. I'm going to turn my mic off.
Literally turn it off completely. So you
Okay,
get
let
like
me
a.
talk. Yeah, and then can you hear? I can't hear an echo now. Oh,
I
is it?
can't hear an echo now. No.
I think it
Come
is
on.
yours, Anna. But then, can you take your headphones off and see if it'll work without headphones, or everybody will hear you in your house?
Just wondering whether Anna can hear us now.
Oh, yeah. She might not with the earphones. Oh no, she should with the mic on, like the mic off, and her headphones are on.
So, just looking, there doesn't seem to be any sign of Ginger yet, but I'll bring her up as soon as she appears.
Yeah, because we're kind of a bit tight for time because she is in Disney World and she is with her family, so we don't want to keep her away from her family for too long. But it's going to be an interesting chat, and it's one for all of us with diabetes.
Yeah.
It just affects us all, doesn't it, Claire? Like our relationship with food and what our any given day as well, it can be different.
It can.
Yeah. And Ginger has 2 books now, kind of in on this topic as well. So there's the emotional eating with diabetes, but she also has another. I'm just going to bring up what it's called. Just I need to write this down. It's called. Say again, Mark.
Now you give the name of the book.
Yeah, it's
Mary.
Stop Overeating During Low Blood Sugars with Diabetes.
Because I actually had a bit of a grumble on GB Doc on Wednesday about, because I know that why there's a lot of people who didn't like the idea of being with Slim. What was it? Slim. The Slimming World. That was the one. Sorry, just coming out of a low myself, so bear with me. But there is very little information, really, or research done for people like me who are obese as a type 1 diabetic. It's normally, if you go to things like Slimming World, it's very often they say, well, you're on insulin, there's not much we can do for you, because insulin is a growth hormone. And especially if you came from the old human mixtide world where everything was forbidden, and then got onto basal bolus and carb counting. It was literally like a child in a sweet shop. But now the problem is the damage has been done, and there's little or no help to the specific. Because we always talk about the 6 to 7 other things that that the beta cells also do, which we got no help in replacing. That's why I'm hoping that there'll be more research into GLP-1s, because I know when I was on Victoza, which unfortunately they found causes pancreatitis, so that's been pulled, I lost 0.5 stone, which was useful. I haven't put it totally back on, but it's not been easy.
Yeah, and there's like, and you have it, like exactly like you say, like with the mixed tards and stuff, it was so regimented, so restrictive, and like I remember, I still have my diet plan, and it was like 2 biscuits for break time and 2 slices of bread for lunch. And so that I just ate 2 slices of bread for lunch in a sandwich or as toast, or I pretty much ate the same thing for as long as I was on that insulin. And then I did a Bertie course then, which is like Daphne, and then moved to MDI. And it was like you say, it was like being in a sweetie shop, and it changed again then when you were put on a pump then, because it just meant that you weren't stacking insulin in the same way. Like, so like your thoughts on what you could and when you could eat were a little more flexible with an insulin pump.
And you could miss meals and stuff if whereas with MDI, and I mean, I just worry because my blood sugar is below, my great HbA1c is below 7.5. What will happen to me when the 4 years of my current pump is up? Will I be forced back onto?
No, they won't take you. You won't revert back.
It'll be interesting. I just want to see what they'll do, because I mean, I've dropped. The annoying thing was, before I went on the pump, I was 7.5%, so I'd have qualified, which is but
you see, the issue is resources. It's the training and getting people onto these systems that is the biggest issue. It's not. It'll be harder work for them to pull you back onto MDI, because they'd have to retrain you again. But like, it's just the upskilling of people and the upskilling of staff to upskill people. Like, you're already there. Like, you're
and I reckon they just need to give me a Dexcom 6 and the upgrade, and I could probably work. I reckon
that will be your natural next step. That will, if that doesn't happen, Mark, I'll be so surprised, because that's not going to be hard for them to do. To do you guys in batches that are on insulin pumps and put you on advanced CGM. If it doesn't happen like that, it's weird.
But it's going to be over 5 years, I reckon, because obviously they've got to do everybody else first.
Oh, but you're part of, you'll still be part of that once they once you need upgraded, you will be upgraded, and then in that process, like it's just a resource. It's like when you'll be touching in with training anyway. So it's easier, and it will be by then even to upskill you onto a closed loop system too. So
that's what I think.
I wouldn't worry.
That's what Thomas was saying. That the problem they found. Oh, I'm probably mixing it up with somebody else, but the problem they found with putting people on closed loops was not understanding the pump. Which was where they had a slight rise in HbA1c, but that shouldn't happen with people like me, because we've been on a pump and it's the best thing ever. The only thing is us males and who are a little bit more hirsute, it's a bit more of a battle with that, but that's something that they need to think about.
With like your hairy bodies, you mean?
Yeah.
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 You guys and cyclists have trouble. You'll have to wax or have
I know.
Johnny's already kind of like branching into that whole kind of thing. He's like, it's so different for you. Yeah, it is true. You guys, you have it hard.
Well, it's just I mean, I think I hope Dolly wasn't, because she kept saying something about how it's with all your with hormones and stuff, and I said, well, it's no cakewalk for men either, diabetes. So please don't think that.
No,
Yeah.
like no diabetes is easy. Like it's all hard. It's all hard, and it's all relative. Like it doesn't matter. Like even if you don't have diabetes, your worst thing is your worst thing. So like, I don't know what diabetes is like for you in your body. I only know what it's like in my own. There's Andy
It's like last week when I went out to lunch with my friend on Friday.
Oh yeah, Claire.
She was telling me, no, you're definitely a type 1 diabetic. You're on insulin. I said, no, I'm not. I'm type 2 diabetes. Just like you. She's going, no, you're not. You're on insulin. You don't take metformin. And I gave up in the end because I wasn't going to argue with her. I wasn't in the right frame of mind on Friday after my appointment on Thursday. So I wasn't going to argue with her.
You just nodded.
I tried to educate her. If she didn't listen to me, she didn't listen to me. But
most people don't realize like there's like 20 to 25% of people who have type 2 diabetes are on insulin and are insulin deficient or insulin like they don't make insulin anymore. Insulin dependent. Sorry, I couldn't get that word to my tongue. And that's a lot of people, because like there are, what are they, around 4 million that have type 2 diabetes in the UK. So like if that's a quarter, that's 1 million of people with type 2 diabetes on insulin, and there's 400,000 that have type 1. So there's 1 million with type 2 on insulin, 400,000. We're not the only ones taking insulin and that need insulin, and that insulin causes
issues.
Just causes issues with food. Like you have to do so much with it. Like it's like I don't know. Yeah.
I sometimes wonder with looping and what have you, if the next step would be to include like a pedometer, so it could work out your activity as well, and that would, if that may help to. Do you know? Does that make sense?
I know what you're saying. Like to try and take into account the activity and the like. They are. I need to look at a few of the sessions that were in ATTD still, like, but the whole digital side of things, the whole wearable tech, like it is all open to be used, and it's only a natural next step.
Yeah. The one session I'd love to understand what was said at ATD was the one on insulin resistance, because I saw a few tweets from people, and they didn't really come to what the conclusion was for those, because it says that they need to start watching out for people who are on massive amounts of insulin, because it just gets worse. And then that's the last tweet I saw. I can't remember if it was Leon or Martin who was tweeting about it. It was one of the D. Voices who was
I'll have
tweeting.
a look, and I'll check the name of it with you and see if it's the right one, and I'll watch it and tell you everything I find out on it. Because see, in the sessions, it's full on, Mark, and like you'll see, like, when it's full on, and it's you're trying to listen, and you're trying to keep up, and you end up not like moving into the next session, and then you haven't taken that last slide that you meant to take a picture of.
Well, I mean, I do this. There's this festival called the World Transformed, and I work as a photographer for it. And what we have to do is we normally end up picking up 3 or 4 different sessions, to which somebody would just go to one, because we go there, take the pictures of the speakers, and process them, then move on to the next one. And
Yeah.
while I was doing that, I normally on my reservoirs, which are 300 units, last about 2.5 days. It went just over the 3, which I know is a little bit naughty, but because I was walking around so much, so what we're doing, I'm going to get used to. I can't wait till we can say a bit more. But you know, those of us who
Sounds
know.
exciting.
Pardon?
It's exciting.
Yes, it's exciting. Be very interesting to do, and hopefully I can do more of them, because I thought you guys did a great job down at ACD, as I was off with on sick because of I had a DVT, so I had to.
Oh no.
Yeah, I think it might have been getting stuck in the cars on the way back, travelling to London and stuff. I'm not sure, so that's why I'm wanting to try and get off peak, travel down to what we're doing, so I can have a good walk around the actual around the train, just to be safe.
Just keep moving.
Yeah, because I'm
How
now.
are you feeling now, Mark?
I'm brilliant. I'm a lot better now. I mean, I went to the photography show on Saturday and did 17,000 steps.
Oh,
Which
well
was,
done.
yeah,
Brilliant. I'm sure you
yeah,
felt that.
yeah. But I'd love to know what they said, because it's really something. Because I always say, as you probably hear me say far too many times, I have the insulin resistance of concrete. You know,
I'm just looking at the session, keeping an eye out for Ginger coming in.
Yeah, she hasn't come in yet. I've just messaged Tom to see if he's got a contact for her.
I'm just gonna see if I was messaging her earlier, so
for those who
I
want
just had
to,
a reply back from Norm, but not Tom. But there we go. If Tom's driving, he probably can't answer me.
I know. There was
he's probably listening on.
Yeah, there was a session coping with obesity. There was
But was that from a type 2 perspective or type 1? Because the problem is type 2, they've still got those hormones that help them.
Oh, hold
type
on. No, I
1s.
think I know the session you were talking about then, because I went to part of that. Let me see. Was it obesity and type 1 diabetes?
Possibly, I didn't see all this. I just was looking at the D.Voice and ATD 2024 hashtags.
If you find one of the tweets that caught your eye, message it to me, and I'll see the session that it was on then. And I'll Saturday was a massive busy day as well. Like there's so many interesting things. Dual and triple agonists in diabetes and obesity, clinical decisions, skin problems, weekly insulin, practical guides to CGM, automated.
Sounds like a lot of sessions I'd love to have gone to, but
there were so many. But you can, like, the thing was, right, you could only go to one at a time.
Yeah.
And it was so hard. And like on my Thursday session when I was speaking at I think 4:30 or so. I couldn't even go to any that day because I was just so afraid that the information that I had in my head would fall out if I went to somebody else's session. So I just sat in my hotel and just tried to keep my own talk in my head. I was so scared actually of like taking in any important information like that would have just popped something else out, and I felt I'd reached full on capacity, and then Friday was grand. Like Thursday was like, oh my gosh, I can't do it.
The problem is whenever I go to these things I'm doing photography, people often say, "Oh, what did you learn at the JDRF event?" I can't remember. Give me a few hours, but I can tell you that the light board that they had behind them was a blooming annoying thing to balance for with the pictures, because that was fun. But
you're just so focused.
Yeah, because you get into a zone of trying to, because the way I handle a camera is, and you'll probably see it, so is like an insulin pump. You literally are looking at histograms like you'd look at a CGM trail, which is like, and then changing things on the camera to get the best picture. It's like I always had to warn Tom, when you do the balloon bit, you're going to have to make it clear, because I'm going to be having to change settings to get the
Oh, to
right
give you
things.
time?
Pardon?
To give you time?
Yeah, well, he kind of I need to guess that you're coming into that, so I can shoot at a faster speed and things like that, and compensate on other things. The
Okay.
exposure triangle kind of works like what we have to do when we're balancing insulin with activity and food and everything, and it's very similar in some ways for me. But that's the way I
Oh,
think about diabetes, and probably there's only me and Kez and maybe Tony who'd understand the analogies, but unless you,
with photography.
yeah, that.
Yeah.
Where are them two?
I found the session. I think insulin resistance and type 1 diabetes, an underappreciated problem.
Yeah, because that's what makes people fat. Because I know for myself that, because I've dropped a lot of what I eat, and although not trying to be sensible about it, like and working with things in the Glucose Revolution book, it has helped me to lose weight by not taking so much insulin, because I've dropped down from 120 units to around not 80 to 90, which is been so
like
good.
that is a lot of, like,
Yeah,
causes a lot of issues when you do have to take so much insulin. And the I know that Ginger is so strong about exercise, and like just even moving, like not necessarily running.
Flipper's
And
just tweeted it.
oh, the session, what
Yeah,
the
Flipper's just tweeted at me.
oh, brilliant.
Yeah. So if anybody's following me, I'll kind of share the thing onto.
Has she put the
Him.
talk, that has she put all the talk? She was asked that, was she at that one? Or
So I knew it was one of you guys, and I couldn't. So apologies, Flipper. I thought it was Leon or Martin, but yeah, I'll share it onto the
chat?
onto the chat. Just give me 2 seconds.
Thanks,
Because I know that a lot of larger people like me have this issue, and it's not something that's really thought about.
And like you say, like there's like having to need and like a lot of insulin, and finding ways to reduce that. Like and I know Ginger like has her exercise book, but
There we go.
it's not about going for a run. And I see her on when she would put shorts out, and I try and do it in my own head, and I'm not good at it. Like where you go for a walk every day, I'm not good at that.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt, what was it, Dr. Matt, what was his name, up in Sunderland? He had a really good bit of research about just moving as well, like even if you work from home, and getting up and moving about, and doing, like, I think he called them snacks, like exercise in snack size.
Yeah.
And he was able to show like the benefit of that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, but one of the good things has been with this, my boss has had to realise I can't just sit religiously at the phone with just a break for 3 hours with only a 10-minute break. He's realised I had to get up and we'll have to walk the 120, 250 steps an hour. So I'm off the phone doing that sometimes, and that does help. But the funny thing was, in my work, we have something on display screen and stuff, and one of the words they say, sitting for long periods causes your blood sugars to rise. And I said to my boss's boss, yeah, that's correct. I can show you the storm periods where my blood sugars improve. That you need to think about it. And it's just so true for those of us who work remotely or work in an office environment, especially sit down and take the calls environment, that they're probably storing up trouble for themselves in the future.
Yeah. And everybody, like it's not just about you. It's not just about people with diabetes either. It's everybody. It's just we can see the difference in our bodies, like in our blood sugars.
And imagine what it's doing in others. And I've got to say this carefully, but I wonder if that can be part of it, the lack of movement doesn't help towards people moving into type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetic and stuff. And would that help if we were to try and move a little bit more?
Absolutely. Like it's not the cause of type 2. Like whatever causes insulin resistance in a person's body is different. Like and how you end up having type 2 is not from eating something or not from not moving, but they're the things that help manage diabetes for any type of diabetes.
Yeah.
It's just hard.
Not easy.
No, and when you're stressed as well, if you have a stressful job, like that affects your diabetes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you're not, like I was reading one of Ginger's books, and it occurred to me like that, like this is what I do, and it's where like I will choose not to eat that like until a little bit later in the day, so that I don't have to deal with the ups and downs. Quite a lot of them having a busy. If I know I'm having a really busy day, I definitely would like choose different foods so I don't have as many ups and downs. Or, but then by doing that, then I'm hungry the rest of the day, and I'll eat more of things that I find difficult to manage, and it's like it was like. The way she described it was when you don't fuel your body, your body thinks like it's in famine, so it stores it's very careful and stores everything. Then when it gets food, and so you're not helping. I don't help myself like that.
Because the thing I found, like this is partly why I've been gone low tonight, was, I'm sitting down doing a 7-hour day handling insurance claims, and then I had to go out to the shops to go buy some stuff, and then of course it just all the insulin that's been sat there waiting, that's been pushing against everything while I've been sat there dealing with stressful calls, because it's not nice for what people are going through, and then suddenly to get up and it's while I'm trudging around Sainsbury's trying to find the things I want, and it then just causes it to drop.
Of course. Yeah. And then if when you have been inactive, like it just doesn't move around your body.
Yeah.
I don't know if Ginger's having problems joining us. I have sent her a message, but she hasn't responded yet.
Yeah.
And I sent a message myself too. So
enjoying Disney, isn't she?
Yeah. She could be stuck on a ride.
Oh no.
What ride is she stuck on? Wonder what ride.
Is she riding Space Mountain?
I'm being
if there's any wrestling fans, that's a bit of a bad reference from Ric Flair.
I'm thinking that she's fondling Goofy's ears. That's what I always do when I go there. It's like, ooh, Goofy. Anyways, I'll get off the mic. Sorry, I had to pop in.
Oh no, stay on the mic. I mean, you're not echoing now, Anna. No. That was probably just a blip.
Echo.
Mary, before you joined in, Anna and I were having a conversation about having a diabetes chat from Disney World next year.
Oh, that'd be a good idea. Yeah.
We're going to put the idea to Tom.
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. We could try and do some fundraising for it.
No, thanks.
Would we all be on different rides then, like at different areas of Disney World? Like, so I'm just looking. Look, I've never been to Disney.
No, me.
Oh wow.
With all the stuff I'm on now, I can't go on rides, unfortunately.
Can you go? Why can't you go on rides, Mark?
I'm on blood pressure because, of course, if I bang my head,
Oh.
because if they're shaking around, I'd end up in a CT scanner. That's the one problem. And they're saying that, but to be fair to them, we talk about sometimes how the NHS can be a little bit not fast, but they literally did everything. They even kept me in longer than everybody else to get a Doppler scan done on my leg just to be certain.
Oh.
For diabetes purposes.
Yeah. And like on that, like I actually had chest pains last summer, and they couldn't have been more thorough and as quick as possible. And I don't know, I think it was just stress, but thankfully, because it wasn't anything else. But they were very thorough for me, just because of diabetes, I think.
It is something that does make people move.
Yeah. Like, I'm not sure if Ginger is having any problems. Like, her phone could be dead. Like, she could like these are things. Her phone could have fallen in a fountain, or Goofy could have robbed it.
That's my impression of Goofy. See, this is what 60 years of being on insulin does to a person. It makes us comedians.
This is what we got to look forward to.
That's right, Mickey.
Oh, like,
and when they have the Toy Story things, isn't there something that they have to, if you say certain words, all the sort of like characters have to drop to the floor with the Toy Story out cosplayers, because like the Goofy and things like that, the people who are doing like Buzz Lightyear and Woody have to sort of like suddenly fall on the floor when there's a certain phrase said.
And is it something that the crowd says, Mark, or is it something that
if somebody says it, they have
to
to think it's something like Andy adult to come, and Andy's coming. That's it.
That is funny.
So, because of course they can't be seen, moving around if Andy's around.
Oh, sure, that's in the film, isn't it? Yeah. Aye, because
They
that's when they all just drop all limp on the ground.
Yeah, like toys.
Yeah.
If you see one.
Yeah, exactly. And I am not sure if Ginger is seeing any of her messages.
Don't think she's seen the one that I sent her. I did have just had a look. Don't think she's seen it.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, and I know I had gotten a reply from her saying thanks. I posted about her latest book that she's put out, and maybe she had, like you say, maybe the phone died, or just trying to find a quiet place where the kids won't be in the background going, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, what candy floss? A candy cane, a big." A big, you should see, like the first time I ever went to the Disneyland in Florida, I was watching these kids walking around with these huge turkey legs, and they're supposed to represent a dinosaur leg or something like that. And I just thought, and it's horrible to say this, I just thought, oh God, no wonder they've got they're going to become it's the food that they were eating. And it's like this huge turkey thigh that they had and I guess it's supposed to be something that's to do with dinosaurs. I'm not sure. I just thought America is so strange, but it's all right. It's a small world after all.
After all, yeah. But the food thing, it's not just in the States. Like it's all over the world now.
True.
And how diabetes is increasing all over the world. Like the way food is doesn't help anybody at all. And like I struggle with when people talk about like what we should and shouldn't eat and what we can and
Right.
can't eat as people with that like diabetes, whatever type we have, because like it's not that anybody who doesn't have diabetes should be eating all the types of those kinds of foods all the time either.
No, it's true. Well, I always say it's quantity, right? It's, you can have it. Like I've had so many people over the years tell me, you can't eat that. You're diabetic. And yes, I can, but it's moderation and knowing. It's just moderation. I've never, you wouldn't even know I'm a diabetic. I used to fool all my friends. Like, is it, oh, you have diabetes? And again, it's that, what is supposed to be what we eat. And it's, it's a good point.
Yeah, like, and it's their perception that they're allowed to eat it and we're not. And then in the type 1 world too, like when you say, but I can have that, I just need to take the insulin for it, by not saying that like others can as well, other people with other types of diabetes can as well. It kind of just implies that they can't. And that's another kind of that we don't realize that we do if we don't say that. We've got Jack in the chat too. Just to let you know, Jack, Ginger is late, or we can't get in contact with her tonight so far. We're thinking maybe, we don't know what to think. We're thinking she's on a ride, maybe like on what do you call one of those Disney rides?
Like a roller coaster.
Yeah,
or
big
something
roller
like that.
coaster. Yeah, because she's in Disney World at the minute and taking a break from her family to join the chat. But I think something's just gone wrong with connections.
Yeah.
But we're chatting about relationships with food and diabetes. If anybody wants to come to the mic and talk about it, like I know there is all that's going on with in the UK, but it's aside from that. It's like what is what makes having diabetes hard around food, and not even just people on insulin, actually. Like my dad doesn't take insulin, and he manages it with metformin and his diet, and he does eat like a wee bird, and I think it's more restrictive when you don't have the same choice as well, and it's not just about insulin. Would you guys agree or disagree? Or
No, I'd agree.
I'd agree too. My dad is 94 and he's got type 2 diabetes, and he now, I can't even buy him like digestives with chocolate on. Like, he used to love those, and he's so scared of going onto insulin. So he eats, like you were saying, like a bird. And but then he's telling me that at that age, they don't eat as much, but it still scares me. It still scares me though, because the only time he has a good nosh up is when he comes here for dinner. But I just know that he eats sort of the way I do. And it's just because that's in me. It's been ingrained into me all these years. But he does deny himself some things that he used to like.
I think that's the word I would use, is deny. Yeah, and like
sorry, Dad, if you're listening.
I think it's the same, and with my dad, like, as well, because like I know he will, when I go down home and I cook dinner, he'll eat all his dinner, but he'll make himself something that he can see. I think, like, he'll make himself a sandwich for dinner, or he'll like like mom and daddy are still together and they would still eat, but like they would both also say we don't need to eat that much anymore. But then when you cook them dinner, like, they'll eat a full plate of dinner. I don't know.
But I know with my mom, I mean, when we were eating together, and or she's cooking and she'll put me like a big plate of chips and she'll only have like 4 or something like that. And I mean, I've stopped having lots of carbs with my food. So like tonight, I only had a chicken Kiev and with a load of vegetables to try and drop the carbs. But I mean, well, you'll find. Have you found looking at the carb counts when you go out to restaurants? It's like most main courses are about 100 grams of carb. I've found if you don't have like a steak, because it's the amount of chips and you know and potato that comes with them, and it's trying to say, fine, get rid of that. Like if I ever can't fancy a steak or don't have the money, and I ask for a burger, I often ask for. Have you heard of a naked burger
Oh
where
yeah, without a bun.
Yes.
without
Yeah.
the bun? And it's sort of like it's interesting. You say, "Can I have a naked burger?" And you wonder what people are gonna think with that and what have you.
And I
But
can't.
I've always done that though. I don't want those carbs. So instead I'll have some onions that have been you know, you make up with the vegetables, right? And you
Yeah,
taste the meat because the bun just hides all
all the
it
flavour. Yeah.
hides them. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah.
I wish
No,
I wish they'd try like doing like a burger with like lettuce leaves instead of
They do that here. We have this. It's A&W. I don't know if you have that in the
No.
UK,
no.
but you can ask for my husband. He's not diabetic, but he'll always he doesn't want the bun. I think I've trained him into being low carb or not low carb. But yeah, they'll get you know, I don't think it's romaine. Romaine's tastier, but that's how he has it. It's a bit sloppy, but it's not got the carbs in it.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
like I went to one of those low carb and keto festivals that they have in the UK, and I met another diabetic, and she was struggling to get onto an insulin pump, but because she really does eat a keto style diet, she only needs like very small. She was as thin as a rake and very small doses of insulin, and they found even the half unit pen wasn't working for her. And I said, well, you should say this because with an insulin pump you can dose down to 0.01 of a unit, and that's maybe something you want to try and see if you I did try to get her into this, but it was finishing once we got talking about it because she was on one of these shake stalls, which was because she could have maybe used like the input guys and you know what JDRF have now and stuff to try and fight a corner because there's so many other things. But that's just another point.
And like, do you think most people with diabetes would have disordered eating but not realize what disordered eating is?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because like you get used to your life and it's, is it disordered eating for some, or is it just how they're happy to eat?
Yeah.
I know for me, I don't enjoy eating. I eat because I have to eat.
Do you remember before you were diagnosed, Claire, like how you felt about food?
I used to love my food.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was looking online earlier to see if I could find any information on disordered eating with type 2, but I can't find anything at all.
You're joking? But I know that there, like, people with type 2 are seen for disordered eating, because I wonder would Jack be able to talk about that? I don't know if that's something that she could
I've just
speak
sent her an invite to speak to see whether she'll come up to the panel.
to see if she knows of any like support networks or anything for those who have type 2 and disordered eating. But I know that other psychologists do.
I was also looking online over the weekend at like the Daphne courses.
Yeah.
That's like Daphne's for type 1. And I always understood that Bertie was for type 2, but I went online and Bertie's for type 1 as well.
No,
I think
Bertie
it's
is for type 1.
Desmond.
Desmond is type 2, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I did have a look at Desmond, but there isn't anything in our area.
And I'm looking at an article here that's saying there's limited research on type 2 diabetes and eating disorders. It's estimated that between 12% to 40% of people with type 2 diabetes have an eating disorder. And that's really, there's very limited information that I'm seeing on any discussion for type 2.
And I like the way I hear us talk, like not us in the room here, but like us who have type 1 talk about like food and that we can eat anything once we can take insulin, it does automatically make me think of those with type 2 who don't take insulin and have to really restrict their lives. And how is that only 12 to 40%?
I know.
Because
Yes.
I mean, I am on insulin, as you know, but I have problems with eating. I could go all day without eating, but then I'd be starving at night and send my blood sugar sky high.
Yeah, and you see, when you're not eating during the day, it's like you become more insulin resistant, but like even more insulin resistant when you do eat, because your body thinks that it needs to store everything because it's going to be starved
Right.
tomorrow, the next, or like at the start of the day.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I, now that you're talking about it, I do have a slight problem. I do have an eating disorder because I'm like yourself, that well, either it's because my blood sugar's too high, and of course I don't want to eat, right? Because I just want to get it down. So I can go from morning until nighttime and not eat anything, and that's not really right. So yeah.
I mean, today's just a bad day, but I mean, I have eaten today, but I don't know if it was yesterday or Saturday, I hardly ate anything.
Right.
Started the day like quite high, but by the time I got to evening time, I was back within range. And I thought, well, I can't eat anything because if I eat something, I'm going to go back high.
It's going to go back up. Yeah.
And with type 2, Claire, like, is it, you're trying to manage it with insulin as well, which is,
Yeah.
does it is it hard? Like, I'm asking a stupid question because, like, if you don't know what it's like to have diabetes, not in your own body but in somebody else's body, like, is it harder to manage insulin? This would be the same for you, Mark, then, with insulin resistance. Is it hard to manage with insulin, with unpredictable insulin resistance? Is it predictable? Is it unpredictable? Is it?
I
know
would
it's
say
stupid question.
Unpredictable.
Where do you see it unpredictable? Like, is it like
Right.
talk,
Today,
Mark?
you know, I've been doing this from 9 till 5. I was sat at a desk in my room, editing, you know, taking phone calls, and yes, I was trying to walk 250 steps, you know, an hour to try and do that, and I've done that for the last 7 days now, and it seems to really help. But then I had to go to Sainsbury's to go get something. Now because my insulin had finished from my morning, you know, from dinner or lunch rather. But that's using the Black Country version of dinner. So
Your dinner, yeah.
yeah. I ended up taking a correction dose. Forgetting I was going to have to go walk round Sainsbury's,
Yeah.
and then so basically that movement brought down the insulin, brought down my just work, like, you know, I just sometimes say it's like it goes charge and suddenly everything just suddenly works. Because sometimes I find when I'm in a hyper, I can put insulin in all day, but unless I do some physical movement, it don't help. So I'll often, like once Tom was suddenly went to me and he said he wondered where I'd gone, and it was like, actually, Tom, I'm actually currently just doing a walk to try and bring my blood sugar down, because it is lack of movement, which with me, I think, and like when I did the World Transformed, I hardly used any insulin.
because
I
you were
literally
moving
went
so
down
much.
to about 50 odd units, because I was walking 20,000 plus steps a day, and because basically we get fed, but it's by a vegan cafe, and it's not the same kind of stodge that British people eat.
Yeah.
And it was quite interesting. I lost a couple of pounds, and also I hardly use any insulin, which is, I think, partly because of the movement. And it's just, I couldn't do that permanently as a job with that much movement. But if I did, I'd probably be better for it. I think there needs to be help for people who don't move, and I think that's part of my issue, is having a desk job where I'm on the phone under loads of stress because somebody's roof's just blown off, and we ain't got anybody who's going to be able to come out for 2 weeks, say, for example. Or we can't replace the undamaged part of the suite. It's lots of stress.
Yeah. And like because I would feel insulin resistance quite similarly the way you describe it, but like it's only when my bloods are high. So like I wouldn't naturally be high. Does that make sense? Like, so, but it's only when my bloods are high and sticky, so they stay high, then the insulin will just feel like it's water.
Yeah, exactly that.
And then you are worried then, like, that has the insulin gone in? If it has gone in, then it is it does start to like move about your body then once you do start to do any kind of exercise. But when you have type 2 diabetes, Claire, like does it feel, do you have insulin resistance all the time, or is it
I can't remember who made the comment last week, whether it was Ken or Kez or Helga. Somebody said something about you never know from 1 hour to the next whether your pancreas is going to suddenly start working.
Oh yeah.
And you've already done your insulin, so then you come crashing down.
So this is where taking insulin with type 2 diabetes or insulin resistance is maybe more so with type 2 diabetes, because you are making insulin, but it's not working that well.
But you don't know how much insulin you're making, so you have to calculate what you're taking for what you're eating.
Yeah. And then
and if all of a sudden your pancreas starts working and starts producing insulin as well,
yeah,
then you can have too much insulin,
and then you have to feed the insulin.
Yeah.
And that must make exercising quite a challenge. How have you found work when you, like, I know you're not working at the minute with your foot, but how you worked 12-14 hour days on your feet like last year? How did you manage that?
With great difficulty.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I could be sitting at my desk doing care plans or stuff on the computer 1 minute, and the next thing I'm running around and handling an emergency. But if that happens, I don't have time to think, well, hang on, what's my sugars at the moment?
Yeah.
Do I need to grab something to eat before I go and deal with this emergency? Because it's an emergency, you need to deal with it straight away.
Yeah.
So I found doing 14-hour shifts, sometimes at work I'd be high and then I'd be crashing low, and then I'd feed the hypo and I'd go back high. Then I'd be rushing around doing the meds round, and then I'd come back low.
Yeah.
Which is why I could really do with a pump, but I'll be right at the bottom of the pole for a pump. I mean, there are people who have got type 2 diabetes that are on pumps, but I don't know whether they've got any other health conditions as well. So
sadly, you have to get a gold medal apparently to be type 2 diabetic and have or ideally 5 to have an insulin pump, because there is a very famous Olympian who used to have an insulin pump back in the day, who's British, and it was all and his response to lots of type 1s who used to ask him, how do you get that insulin pump? Win a gold medal, which was quite interesting.
Well, I don't think even if I started my trampolining up again that I'd actually get to the standards where I'd win a gold medal.
But that's what one of our major Olympians who's type 2 said once. So I'm just going off what a friend of mine who once met him and asked him that question said.
And you know, like Sir Steve didn't even know what type of diabetes he was diagnosed with for a fair bit along his journey.
No, I didn't. And I was first diagnosed. They just told me I was diabetic. They didn't tell me whether it was type 1 or type 2. In fact, I think it was when my current diabeticness started at the surgery in 2014 that I first heard, I'm type 2.
Right.
So Jack has joined the speaking panel, and so has Kez.
Oh, happy days. Happy days.
Oh, cool.
Hello to both of you.
Come join the chat.
Hi.
Because we don't have Ginger. Ginger hasn't been able to make it, and we can't get through to her. So we're just chatting ourselves.
Oh, okay, that works. That's cool.
Yeah, and we're just chatting through about food and diabetes and how hard it is with diabetes. I know it's a topic that you know too, because you have diabetes.
Yeah. Mary, I just hopped on because you were talking about the difference between eating disorders and disordered eating.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's a really, really important distinction.
Can you speak to that for us, Jack?
Yeah. So and literally just to say this first is that there are a lot of problems particularly in the type 1 community about what name we give this and how we talk about it. And when I did my initial research for my first doctorate, I asked the community what they wanted it to be called, and they said TIDE, T1ED, type 1 eating disordered. And I'm all for that because to me, the fundamental difference is that an eating disorder is driven by deep psychological problems, right? So an eating disorder in general, if you look at something like anorexia or bulimia or diabulimia, is driven by an intense fear of weight gain, right? That is what drives your eating behavior. So it's a psychopathological event. However, disordered eating is something that I think all of us with type 1 have, not all of the time, but it's not driven by psychopathology, it's driven by biology. So, for example, I've got gastroparesis, right? I ate my dinner today and that was it, because of my gastroparesis. Now, to the outside world, that because of my history, that might be like an eating disorder. It's definitely disordered eating, but it's not driven by any psychopathology. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
So if your eating behavior is being driven by emotions, probably deep-seated psychological or deep-seated psychological issues, then it's an eating disorder. If it's being driven by something else, then it's potentially disordered eating, and that's how I differentiate it in type 1 diabetes. So, for example, if someone comes into my clinic and is referred for anorexia, that can go two ways, right? It could be an eating disorder where someone is not eating and they might also not be injecting because they have a pathological fear of weight gain. Yeah. Or they're absolutely terrified of hypoglycemia, so they don't want to inject, so they don't eat. That's disordered eating.
Oh, yes, I see.
Right. So and because how you treat those two patients would be completely different. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It like the eat you're saying and check that I picked this up right. So that with eating disorders, it is about the weight gain. It's about weight. And
not necessarily just weight. I mean, it depends on the presentation. If you were looking at something like binge eating disorder, then you might be looking at different sort of emotional trauma, childhood trauma.
Oh gosh,
More
right.
in the kind of addiction paradigm.
Okay.
But that's it. And actually, the addition of binge eating disorder to eating disorders as a whole kind of threw the paradigm off a little bit, because it wasn't always about weight and shape, whereas all of the other eating disorders had that at their core. So the introduction of binge eating in DSM-5 sort of threw the discipline a little bit, because we're like, well, wait a minute, we thought we knew what this was, but if binge eating disorder is also an eating disorder, then how do we sort of marry that all together? And I think it's about the psychopathology of it, and about the sort of like the pain. And in binge eating, I tend to use more of an addiction paradigm, but disordered eating is something that probably every time you're too high and you don't eat a dinner, that's disordered eating.
Yeah.
But does that mean that you have an eating disorder? No, not in my book.
Yeah.
That's how I sort of differentiate it, and that's how I differentiate it in my patients, if that makes sense.
Is binge eating, would that be seen more with people with diabetes than or people who have to restrict?
Yes, and interestingly, binge eating is on the rise in type 1, massively on the rise, like to a degree of maybe like an increase of over 100% between two of my research projects. I personally think that is actually being driven by disordered eating that spills into eating disorders, right? So what I mean by that is you've got a nice straight line on your Dexcom, and you're like, I'm not ruining that.
Yeah.
And that can only last for so long, and then you get hungry, you binge eat. That then becomes problematic. You actually fall into the sort of biological paradigm of, well, now I'm binging, getting all this dopamine, and that becomes habitual. So now you've got an eating disorder. Do you see what I mean?
I see what I like. As soon as you use the phrase, it was like, but I can see where that would happen, and I can see where, like, you reach a point where you just haven't eaten so much during the day, and you are hungry, and you just eat everything because you're.
But that's the thing. They're closely related. So the person who develops a fear of injecting and develops a fear of hypoglycemia then loses weight, and is like, it becomes driven by the weight loss. And now you've got a person with an eating disorder that had its origins in disordered eating.
Of course, yes. Jeepers, it's a nightmare. And
it is, but it's not, though, is it? I mean, the thing that really bothers me about this is that actually, if you spend any time, all of us know this instinctively. We know this. Like, and yeah, someone like maybe like me comes along now and says, "Oh, let's do a research project." Rah, rah, rah. But I've been saying this since 2008 when I didn't have an undergrad. Do you know what I mean? I think most of us who've been around in the community know that sometimes to manage our diabetes, we have to engage in what looks like disordered eating behaviour. And at that point, is it disordered eating behaviour or is it self-care? That's a really difficult thing, because no, it's self-care for me to eat a salad that's only 400 calories because my blood sugar is 14.
Oh, Jack, that's so true. Like that's like that, and I'm laughing now, like when you said that, because like, so I would that's how I start to mind myself in and it's like to watch everything that I do really carefully and start at the beginning again, and I will restrict things, but like it's not, and that, but that's me being good to myself. Like,
but that's it as well. If you see the wrong clinician, you've got an eating disorder. Do you know what I mean? And that's the problem, is that really this whole subject, what it needs experts in diabetes eating disorders, and it needs experts in what it's like to live with diabetes.
I love what you just did there. Because that's like where, like, there is conversation about this going around us, and like we self-manage this 99.97% of the time ourselves, and we do well, like, and we know what to do ourselves well. Yes, there are traps, but we don't see them like those. Like we when we see them as self-care, it's different.
And then you get the other problem is when do you take that too far? And again, that's why if you see someone, you need to see someone who's an expert in living with diabetes, who can say, like, actually, this started off as you looking after your diabetes, but now you are hitting a weight category that's unhealthy. And now we have to start thinking about if this has become something more psychopathological. And to do that, you need someone who really understands the day-to-day of living with diabetes and the decisions that we have to make, for most of us, 3 or 4 times a day.
So is this, I'm going to ask you a question then, is this where when you're on a weight loss program and you lose lots of weight and you have to stay in that place, is that where it gets really in a bad place then? Because does that move from
this
helping
is
yourself?
I think that, yes, in my experience, and I've worked with thousands of people who have eating disorders in the course of my career, and the problem that we're not taking into consideration is that as a demographic, we are naturally more prone to eating disorders because of the amount of time that we have to spend thinking about food. That's why it is upwards of 40% in both type 1 and type 2, even though the eating disorders themselves might vary. We are naturally more vulnerable because we're put into this situation where we're always at a slimming club.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you're always at a slimming club. You're always counting calories. You're always counting carbs. When you add in the peer pressure and the moralizing that comes along with maybe joining a group, then of course, it's going to be very difficult to work out what's health and what's tripped up into an eating disorder.
Mm-hmm. And if that's done without, like as you say, without somebody who has proper diabetes training and a background psychologically to support you, then you're missing somebody that will be, I suppose, able to show you like when you're in a danger zone.
But also that might be inadvertently awakening any of those sort of tendencies that you have anyway, you know, because we are kind of always in these situations where we're justifying what we do. If you think about it, when we sit down with our consultants or with your GP when you're type 2 and they go, well, what's been going on? I mean, I don't know about you, but they'll go, oh, look, there's a Dexcom spot here that was in the 20s and what happened there? And I'm like, well, you know, I under-injected for my pizza or whatever. Do you know what I mean? We're constantly having to justify in a health setting what we're consuming. That's bad enough once every 3 months, 6 months, a year. Doing that in front of untrained professionals every week where the goal is to lose weight. Like that's the goal. And on top of that, many of these programs also moralize foods. So they have lists of this is good for you. Ooh, that's naughty and bad for you. So, but you're already there. You know, all of us were already there. We're already like having to do this to ourselves. So just to me, like I said, I've worked with thousands of people with type 1 diabetes and eating disorders. And I would say at some point, the vast majority of them have failed on these programs or have been led into, like we all have some sort of relationship to these kind of programs. To say it deeply concerns me would be the understatement of the century.
with not the right support and not the full clarity and seeing what the programs are like. I'm even thinking like as well when you're in that cycle and you're having to pay for it as well, like every month. And if you put on weight, then you start paying again. Like if you go over your target, I think you start paying again. I think that's where it's another part that's difficult as well.
I mean, yeah, why not just add another form of punishment in? You know what I mean? As if it's not enough to sit and watch your Dexcom graph, you know. Anyway, I feel like I've sort of dominated this conversation a little bit for the last 10 minutes, so I'm going to bow out now.
Can I ask you one quick question? Because Claire had a question about type 2. Do you see anybody with type 2, or do people with type 2 get referred to psychology, for diabetes psychology?
If they have complex type 2, yes. If they have complex type 2, then they tend to be under a consultant. So if you're under a consultant, then you may have access to diabetes psychology in the same way that like anyone with type 1 would in that clinic. But there is a massive lack of diabetes psychology in adult services.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, in pediatrics, yes, I see young type 2s as soon as they get diagnosed. They get the psychology and the psychological input. And actually that a lot of that is focused on like meeting up with a dietitian and all of that sort of stuff. But does that exist in adult services? Not most of them.
Thank you for that. That's helpful.
Thank you, Jack. That's very interesting.
Oh, also though, just to say that if you feel that you do have an eating disorder, that does make you complex type 2 and you should request to go and see a consultant.
Thank you.
Another interesting part to it.
I think it's really tricky though, because like as someone who travelled through misdiagnosis, etc., like, and then when you finally think, actually, I don't know, when I finally thought, actually, I've got a bit of a problem here, they then fight to speak to, quotations, the right person. Like, you just think, what's the point? Because I spent months going from should we call it an all-age eating disorder service, who didn't want to know me because my BMI is too high, being told it's diabetes psychology, to then go back through the route, okay, well, who do I talk to? We don't have any psychologists for you to talk to. Okay, so what do I do? And then you're just sat, what is your option? You're sit and have 12 counselling sessions with an IAPT worker who you're going to spend 90% of that time explaining what diabetes is and not actually talking about what the problem is.
And you don't get any help then?
No.
Yeah.
So there's this massive, no one really wants to take responsibility for, and that's, I know that's a wide generalization. There are some people who do, clearly, but there's just not enough of it. There's not enough people who can have the conversations and make that distinction that Jack's talking about, or even point you in the right direction.
And when you do see somebody who can help with eating disorders and type 1 and disordered eating, like how we help ourselves, like I'm just taking it back to like just how we all feel about food and like good habits, like and there's the self-care bit where like having good outcomes with diabetes, it does involve what looks like disordered eating, and following that through and knowing where there's fine lines and within yourself. But like, do any of you guys have any habits that you do? Because I know what I'm doing right now actually this week is I'm trying not to have too big an amount of carbs at dinner time, because I don't count them, or as my ratio isn't quite good enough. I haven't got that fine tuned at dinner time, so I'm overcompensating, and then I end up having to treat a hypo before bed or just after I go to bed. So I'm pulling back my carbs at dinner time to see what that looks like, and the last 2 nights have been great. Are there any kind of things that you do to help yourselves?
I think, I mean, mine specifically links to tech. If I think where I was when I was on the Libra and I was having to scan, and I was in a position where I was scanning 46 plus times a day, was that healthy? Was that self-care?
No.
At the time, I thought it was, because I knew what was going on. Do you know what I mean? I thought
Yeah.
that was helpful. But
Yeah.
actually, the stress that caused me with what, like Jack's saying, you know, you've got that straight line, which we all know isn't, you know, that's not normal. That's not typical, is it? Let's be honest.
No.
But I thought I was doing myself a favour by scanning like that, by waking up in the night to do injections when obviously I was on MDI at the time. And now I think, wow, like I've almost gone the opposite where I'm trying to unlearn that behaviour.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
one thing I do with my eating is I read a book called The Glucose Revolution, and I found that has helped me. And I bet it would probably be seen as disordered eating. Like, one thing that they recommended in that thing was to eat all your sort of like green vegetables first, because the argument, the analogy they used was it was to like block the sink, and that then slows down the absorption of other carbs. And you know, I just found that helped, and it helped me lower with my insulin resistance. So I don't know if that would be classed as disordered eating, but it just felt like it's something I still do now. And if you'll probably when with what we've got coming up, you'll probably notice I do this, and it's just the way. So you eat your greens, so like your vegetables first, then your meat, then finally you go to any starches, so chips or potatoes and what have you,
You know,
and then
there was a study done, and I was thinking about it last week when I was in ATTD, because it's not that far from Pisa. But
mhm,
I think there were a study group based in Pisa, and I remember they looked at that exact thing about the timing of the macros, and it was literally that, like, that you eat like your vegetables, so your lower carb vegetables first, and then you move on to your proteins, and then you eat the carbs, the higher carbs. There's carbs
yeah,
in vegetables, like, and eat them last, and it's, you don't spike. They were able to show that you don't spike in the same way because you
mhm,
haven't just thrown it straight into your body.
yeah.
Yeah,
And also, I have found
it's a
some
good
help
tip.
in eating. So one thing I also used to do was have like a green salad before the meal with balsamic, with 1 tablespoon of balsamic and 2 tablespoons of olive oil to make like a vinaigrette, and that used to help as well. This book was really good. I know people have, because the person who wrote it has brought out some kind of tablets as well. But the initial book I found quite good. It was called The Glucose Revolution.
Yeah,
Um,
I haven't read it, but I've written it down to have a look at, actually.
I'll see if I can get, because I listen to it on Audible.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I do. I do listen on Audible, actually. Yeah.
yeah, I might see if I can get into my Audible. I'll see if I can DM you a link to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it's quite good. And she's got a book, and I mean, she's not very much for the person who wrote it was not very much for the cinnamon thing, because she says all sugar is sugar, and just have the one you like, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Like, but
And
there are things that we do, like, that help ourselves, and
the other thing I did, which was the major change, was I used to have Weetabix in the morning, and that used to cause a little bit of a spike, and I used to have to put a lot of insulin in for that. But I swapped out to yogurt and putting protein powder on it, and chia, and what, flax seeds, and
I'll
that
eat
seems,
yogurt. I will eat
yeah,
that. I'll eat. Some
Greek
days I'll eat
yogurt.
porridge, but like, I'm eating yogurt this week, actually, again.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll see if I can find the link to the Audible book from Glucose Revolution, and I'll pop it
Yeah.
in the chat and what have you.
It just has it.
Anna's done that, Mark. It's in the chat. The
Oh,
link
well,
Oh,
is.
good.
happy days. Thank you, Anna. Like, and I know that Ginger's new book is about lows, like, when we have roller coasters. Like, 'cause this plays on my, like, this is why I'm being good to myself now because of the hypo roller coaster, and I'm trying to stop that roller coaster because I will overeat, and then it causes me to go high. So you get a double whammy of eating lots and having high blood sugars, and then crashing again because you kind of will rage bolus because you've eaten so much because you've just been low. And do you do anything for your to manage your hypos, or like around food in a positive way? What I'm
Not
doing is trying to pull back the carbs on the meal before to see if I can get the ratio better, because that's what I think is causing my problems, but I know I have an issue with it.
not so much with
Go on, Mark.
not so much with hypos, but with hypers, and I think somebody already mentioned it. If I'm high, and because I know my ratios will probably be out when I'm high, if I'm in the mid-teens, there's no real
Yeah.
point in they're just not going to work. So if it's coming to a meal time, I have tried to have a zero carb meal. So like for instance, I have these vegetable packets that they do from which is very low, from Sainsbury's, which has like broccoli,
Oh, I know what you mean.
cauliflower, and what's the other one? Carrots in there, and then I sometimes have like a few slices of corned beef or cheese, because it's no carb, literally very low carb. But that I don't know whether that would come into this, or
But it is managing a hypo or a hyper, and do you feel good for doing that, because you're
it's, for me, it just saves a lot of hassle from going back up, because
it's the
if
hassle.
because of the insulin resistance, if it's increased when I'm high, so I'm better off to just get a few slices of corned beef and that, and one of those vegetable packets, and eat that, and
See,
maybe one of the super low keto carb.
Do you think though you think more logically when you're higher than you do when you're lower? Because
Yes.
when you're low, I honestly, my brain just goes, Mary, you're dying.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a second bowl of that cereal.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas I wouldn't do it when I'm high. I know I can be more logical about how I eat when I'm high, but and I know Ginger talks about this in her book, and how, and I wanted to ask her what she suggests about it, but it's just what you tell yourself, or because I'm only starting literally with the carbs, and then it starts to write itself, like taking one thing out of it then makes everything else a bit more visible and calms everything down. And I know as well, I've just actually said that I got another step for myself by even just talking about that. Like, I need to raise my target in the evening time, because I think I'm having too many hypos. Sorry, I'm just having a bit of self-therapy here. What else could we talk about? I remember being asked about, this is about food and relationships to food, and when things aren't going well, and how you get yourself back, on the wagon, how you reset yourself. And I know for me it's pre-bolusing. Is there anything you guys do that, like, whenever you've had a period of just too many challenges, like how you reset yourself?
Pre-bolusing for me is an interesting thing, because it depends on what I'm doing. Again, it's all about the movement, and because if I know I'm not going to go for a walk after the meal, I sometimes try will bolus up to 3/4 of an hour before the meal if I can. But if I'm low and close to, I have to leave it. It's like tonight, because I was going low and I bolus too early. It's, as I say, and it's good having cares probably. It's sort of like I have to make those amendments to my insulin regime, like I would do with when I'm shooting a camera in manual mode to get the right thing for what I want at that time.
Just having
You
to
see,
really
and
fine tune it.
yeah, and it's knowing that, and it's sometimes you just don't get it right.
And
But there's
Claire,
no.
Claire, I'm just thinking with insulin resistance, and when you were talking before about you don't know when, like your body, like Mark's just talking about exercise there. So that's one thing, like when you're moving around, but like when you don't know if your pancreas kicks in insulin, like how do you try and reset yourself? Like where do you start?
Giving myself a good kick normally.
No, you don't.
I don't know really. Probably by talking to people like you that are my friends, my support network.
Is it just talking about it? Because maybe that's actually the first step. It's just actually talking about
Yeah.
it. Because then once you start, that becomes more real rather than just you're not keeping your head in the ground. I think you're right. I think it is talking about it.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, because then you can start thinking about what hasn't been going well in your own head. Oh, you're so
Yeah.
right. You're so right. And then that goes back to peer support, like where we don't all have peer support, and if people don't have it, who do they talk to about it?
Well, yeah. I mean, up till 2 years ago when I happened to go onto Twitter on that Monday night, and it told me that DiabetesChat space was live. Did I want to listen to it? I didn't really have anybody other than my DSN that I could talk to. Yeah, my mum's diabetic. She's type 2, but her control's a lot better than mine was at the time. She doesn't have insulin. She's only on medication. She hasn't got a Libra. I mean, I hadn't at the time, but I have now. And I had nobody really to talk to. And it was so hard.
And you said you had like your DSN. Would you have spoken to your DSN often?
Probably once every 3 months if I was lucky.
No. So no. And then you don't even get to talk. You don't have the space to talk about the things that are a challenge because you don't know whether there's other things to be talking about in those meetings, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, up till probably about 3-4 years ago, I think I was still in total denial about my diabetes. I just
Sure,
didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to deal with it. And gradually, over the course of 6 to 12 months with the new DSN, I started to accept it.
What do they do differently?
It was just being there, basically, and just talking to her. Up till then, we hadn't had a diabetes specialist nurse in the practice.
I see.
You were just seen by the practice nurse.
Oh gosh. Oh, and then that goes back then to Jack saying, like, to speaking to somebody who actually knows about diabetes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just made to feel it was my fault because I was overweight at the time. But even when I lost 6 stone, yes, I had probably a 6-month period where my sugars were reasonably in control, but not great. So yeah, and up till the point in 2014, I'd had nothing. nobody to talk to.
And do you think even if he had somebody to talk to, would you have felt comfortable talking?
Probably not, no.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm the way things are at the minute. Like, just don't think people feel, believe themselves that it's not their fault, and all the little things. When I was writing that my talk for last week, it's all the little things like that knock us off, that kind of upset the balance, and they're the things that motivate us to change things. They're not the things that we talk about in our appointments. Like, we don't talk about the not being able to get our insulin, get the right insulin, or when you pick up your prescription, it's the wrong prescription, and you have to go backwards and forwards, and then you're trying to manage it with work, and then you leave your insulin at home if you're on pens, and you forget it, and like there's
Oh, you break your pen?
yeah, and you break your pen, yeah. What happened to your pen? Did it get run over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad ran over it. It fell out of my handbag.
Yeah, like, sorry.
I could laugh about it now. It caused rather a lot of stress at the time.
Yeah, I know. But it's the little things, and those, like, it feels like those little things attract more little things, but they're all small in their individualness. But when they all clump together, like you miss appointments, you miss different things, they all come together, and it's a big thing. But by itself, then it's something that you've just done wrong yourself. Like, it's just a big lump of failure.
Yeah.
And it's not about not taking your insulin, because it's not about not trying, and it's not about not watching what you eat, because you watch what you eat the whole time. It's all the other things that make that hard.
Yeah.
Oh, anyways, this is a whole different chat than what we'd anticipated. If anybody wants to join the speaker panel, please do, because it's more of an open mic tonight. We've had problems with Ginger, and I think her phone's fallen in a puddle, basically, in Disney World. That's not true. But yeah, we've have just technical troubles with Ginger. And we were talking about relationships with food and diabetes, and I suppose talking about positives and negatives, and what we do to help ourselves, and what can be challenging with having diabetes and food. What else are we talking about, Claire?
Big things and little things that are challenging us, and things like that.
Yeah.
Mary, can I chime in with a bit of a professional opinion?
Please, Jack. Yeah.
It's just because when I'm listening, it's weird to listen to these sort of things with three hats on, and I really resonate with a lot of what everyone's saying. But I was just thinking about the sort of forms of therapy that are really useful for the kind of negative attitudes that we have towards ourselves when it comes to these things.
Yeah.
And also about like getting back on track.
Yeah.
There's two forms of therapy. One is called compassion focused therapy, and the other one is called acceptance and commitment therapy.
How do you access them?
Sorry?
How do you access them?
Okay, so most, luckily, in my experience anyway, most diabetes psychologists tend to be quite integrative, which means that if you go and see someone who's a quote unquote diabetes psychologist, they'll probably be aware of what models you need and sort of what types of techniques and what therapies might help. Okay. The problem is that we're also quote unquote evidence-based, right? And so these are newer forms of therapy, which means that they don't have quite the same amount of evidence base as, say, like CBT.
Okay.
But I would argue that also CBT is it self-generates results, which is why it's so dominant, because it's been used in IAPT spaces, talking therapies, where they're constantly taking measurements and stuff like that. It's almost like designed into the system to generate evidence, whereas like most of your sort of independent diabetes psychologists, they're not doing that. You know, they've got massive caseloads and it's not built into the system in the same way. Does that make sense?
100%, I get you. Yeah.
So, but there's the evidence for CFT and ACT, particularly in chronic conditions, including diabetes, is it's like a sort of burgeoning discipline, and most of the diabetes psychologists I've come across are aware of them and will use those models. And compassion focused therapy is really about addressing. Can I swear?
No, because we're not editing this, but like, can you? But like, don't swear, Jack.
Okay, I won't swear.
I'm trying my hardest not to.
No, but the reason is because when I was working in adult diabetes, I ran a course for people with type 1 diabetes called, well, I wanted to call it "Diabetes is a Swear Word, so don't beat yourself up." But, Rose Stewart, my boss, said that if it went really well, the commissioners probably wouldn't like to commission that. So it was changed to "Diabetes is hard, stop beating yourself up." And the point of compassion focused therapy, as you might have guessed, is to hold in mind that you didn't ask for this, that it's nobody's fault, that actually these negative voices are probably making your issue worse, like whatever that might be. And so it's addressing that really sort of harsh self-criticism that might be keeping you stuck. And I think that's really relevant for us in diabetes, because we have so many opportunities to criticize ourselves.
Yes.
You know, like every time the Dexcom is high or low, oh no, it's, well, what did I do here? What did I do? Why did I not manage to do this? God, I'm stupid. Oh, I bet everybody else manages this better than me.
Yes.
You know, all of those kind of negative voices. And so I designed a course for the NHS to look specifically at that. And I've had a couple of people get in touch with me since. And I know that one of the therapists that works, I think, in Liverpool, only uses compassion focused therapy in diabetes. So there are some really good self-help resources for compassion focused therapy. However, it can come across as a bit cheesy. That's the only thing I would bear in mind. If you're going to get a CFT book, it can come across as a bit cheesy and you sort of think, oh gosh, this is a bit uncomfortable and a bit silly. But actually, if it's done right and you think about how you can apply it to yourself, I've had really, really good results with that. And then acceptance and commitment therapy is about living a life that adheres to your values. So it's not so much about a goal, it's about how you live your life and using your values to make the right decisions. And there's a lot of some people who do ACT use a lot of mindfulness. I personally don't, because I have ADHD and I find it very difficult to teach it when I really struggle with it myself. But acceptance and commitment therapy is getting now quite a large evidence base for diabetes. So if you're looking for there's two popular psychology books that might help for this. Well, for compassion focused therapy, it is there's Paul Gilbert is the originator of therapy, and he has a book called The Compassionate Mind. And then there's also a book called Self-Compassion Step by Step by Kristen Neff, which is also available on Audible. And that's sort of like a self-help workbook that takes you through like 12 weeks. And then the ACT book that everyone loves.
What did you call the self-compassion book that's on Audible?
Self-Compassion Step by Step.
Step by Step, sorry.
And it's by Kristen Neff.
Okay.
But she's got a very American accent. And when I say American accent, she's got a very American therapy accent. And some people respond to that quite well. I'm not one of those people. I'm like, give me a big burly Scottish person shouting at me to do my therapy, please. But no, the other one, the ACT book, is by Russ Harris, and he's a big name in the therapy, and it's called The Happiness Trap.
Oh.
So those are two relatively accessible sort of self-help therapy books. And those are the ones I actually recommend in my clinical practice as well for people who are interested in learning more, or, you know, if it would be something to do with if they're on a waiting list, for example.
That
So
is super advice. And like, what do you think about getting yourself back on track? Would that be like getting one of these books that you literally just said there when people are on waiting lists and things?
yeah, well, I like compassion, because I think that negative voice is something that I've you can kind of, when someone comes in and says, when you say to them, what do you think about that? You can tell someone will say, oh my God, why was I so stupid? And I think, yeah, you need some self-compassion. That's the sort of therapy that we need to do. And it's not necessary. We're not talking about the practical steps. These are the sort of like psychological steps to sort of soothe yourself. It's based on an evolutionary model that essentially we're constantly scanning for threat. And that's the way that our brains have been designed. And I where I find it really interesting is that now we have devices with us that are literally threatening us. So like when the beeps go, it's like, that's your threat. It's designed to sort of give you that threat reaction to come to action. But that carries within itself this penalty of sort of constantly being on alert and waiting for the next disaster to roll in, if you know what I mean.
How
And so
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, so I think that the self-compassion stuff is really useful to, because I mean, like, okay, so I'll switch hats now. I know for me, the biggest lesson I've had to learn is to stop crucifying myself for things that aren't my fault. Like, there's some days where, you know, if I'm due on my period, for example, I have virtually no control over my blood sugar then.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't matter what I did. I would constantly be like, oh, like, why? Look at all these people around me with all these amazing HbA1cs, and I'm just failing constantly. You know, that's what it felt like. It felt like failure. So CFT is probably the model that I use the most in my own life, because of the way that my brain works and because of how negative I can be about myself. So it's about giving yourself the headspace and the self-compassion to go, all right, I can move forward from here without blaming myself. And I think one of my favorite quotes is like, you can't hate yourself into loving yourself.
Oh, and do you know the way you're talking about it, right? I mean, the way what Claire was saying, it was it's talking to people. Like, we as a peer support network for diabetes, like, we do have so much compassion for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody says something, like, people will come in and go, don't say that about yourself, like that's not your fault, or people will like surround people with love and a bit of clarity, and if they don't have that, then this sounds quite similar.
It is, that's exactly that. It's about experiencing that and then being able to do that and be that for yourself.
Yeah.
Which is why it works really well in groups. Like CFT groups actually work really well.
Do you know, like, is that something like that as peer support groups are becoming more and more accepted, should it be part of, when I say the word training, but part of that, like, preparation for people, like, or do we naturally do that ourselves for other people, just not necessarily for ourselves?
Probably just not for ourselves, Mary.
Isn't that, I've just found these last 5 minutes, Jack,
Logging in and out again.
so interesting. Oh,
I think it is really important, and I think what's interesting is, because I'm about to start a new job as the Soul Tide clinician. Well, no, the Soul Tide psychologist for the Norwich Eating Disorder Tide Service. It's a pilot project, and one of the things that I think I'm going to do is everyone's going to have to do this group self-compassion before they come for one-to-one therapy.
that makes
Like,
sense.
I think it's going to be part of the program. And I think once I'm finally set up in private practice, I might actually see if I can do something for people who aren't in Norwich. because it is something that comes up time and time again for people who are experiencing really high levels of diabetes distress. There's almost always some shame, some guilt, some self-criticism, like some really, really negative voices in there.
Yeah. And where would you say like that a lot of the roots of those are because of food and having to manage that and to see that all the time, or because that crosses all types of diabetes? Do you think
Yeah,
Jack?
absolutely. And one of the things that I did in the group that I ran was one of the weeks was called how to be kind to yourself when the world is not, because
yeah.
I think that shame and stigma play a massive part across all types of diabetes. And then also what to do if the negative voice in your head is your diabetes consultant.
Ooh.
Or like I've worked with a lot of adults now who, when you say in that voice that comes in, it was like, well, it was this DSN that said it to me when I was 5. And you kind of feel like hopefully now things have moved on a lot, but there's a lot of sort of hangover from that sort of really old patriarchal system of how we thought we could just shame people into better
Absolutely.
diabetes management. Yeah.
And like we can be that voice ourselves, and we can say things, we can finish sentences that are negative in our heads. So just because somebody says something doesn't mean that we haven't added to it, like in our own heads, like the self stigma.
Spot on. And that's the whole purpose of the therapy, is that you cultivate your own self-compassionate voice, basically.
That's amazing. I'm going to be getting those books. There's 2 with CFT. So there's Paul Gilbert's one, and then the Kristen. I've written in the American therapist beside her name.
It's a really good book. It's a really good book, but it's very much like, hi guys, now we're going to be self-compassionate, and that just doesn't work for me. But I absolutely love her principles, and she's an amazing clinician.
It's funny, isn't it? How like someone's voice can just like not work.
Yeah.
Like I get that. I've listened to a lot of things, and I'll sit there for and I'm a bit like you, Jack. I get distracted by other things, and if the voice isn't like right, then I'm just like, nah, this is making me feel really uncomfortable.
I know, like I listen to Audible all the time because I don't have the patience to read in the same way anymore, and and I'll be listening away, and it could be a really good book, and I just can't hear it. Yeah.
I think I've been reading the same book now for about, I don't know, it feels like forever. It's part of a series, and just I really want to finish it, but I just don't have I can't sit still long enough.
It's just hard. I'm maybe going to be compassionate and not buy any more books maybe for a while. I've got too many books I need to read, but I haven't read them, and then I just don't want to give them the time. Anyway, guys, it's just after 10 o'clock. We don't need to stay on till 10:30 if we're okay to finish up, maybe. This definitely wasn't the chat that
was planned, but it's been a really good chat.
Yeah.
We've had a comment from James Ridgway saying that it's been a really good chat. He's been listening in, wanted us to thank Jack for raising awareness and everything.
Oh, thanks, James. Yeah, so if there's anything else that anybody wants to chip in before we finish, I'll share those CFT books and the ACT book as well, and And
They do sound really good. I think I
No.
might have
Oh,
to get them
actually,
as well.
sorry, I just remembered there's another one.
Oh,
So Russ Harris did the happiness trap,
yeah.
and then his follow-up is called the reality slap,
Ooh.
which is what to do when you sort of hit a crisis. Now, it's in a similar way of Kristen Neff. Some people really get on with his style of writing. I quite like it, and some people don't, in the same way that you're saying. But you know, like some people's audiobook voices, you're just like, oh, I can't be doing with that. So if I'm trying to think if there's any other ACT books, but no, I think those would be the ones that I recommend. Yeah, the reality slap, and the happiness trap.
They are just so helpful because, like, it's all very well and good chatting about things, and we know these issues are there. We know that they're not that big a thing sometimes, and then sometimes they are, and then for some people they are quite a lot of the time. And just having something actionable, it feels really nice, and I'm quite comforted in that there is a therapy that is similar to what we get out of peer support, like that is being shared now and being used, because that's, yeah, I'm comforted by that, and I didn't know that was there, and maybe James knows about that too. I'm just like, I would, because what I was thinking, I wonder if James was listening at that point, like about the Eden and the peer support, to maybe think about mentioning that within it as well. Those little sessions that they're planning. But I'll
Yeah,
stop.
would be good.
Yeah, I'll stop yabbering on. Do you want to finish up with anything, Claire, or will we just?
No, unless we're going to finish up with blood sugar lottery.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, I'll start. Not that it's good, but I'm 13.8.
No, you're not being nice to yourself, Claire.
I've been high most of the day.
I'm 9.9 straight across.
I'm 6.5.
Nice.
I'm 8.2 straight across.
Lovely.
Yeah, I'm on 7.8. Thank you, T Slim, with closed loop, because before that it probably would have been a lot higher.
Could you just imagine it? I can't imagine life without Lupin now. Gosh, and I'm 9.
If anybody else wants to put theirs in the chat, we can read them out, or we don't have to if you don't want us to.
Let's see. Put anything in. Oh, Kez has just been sharing the books, and Anna as well. I'm seeing Flipper's thing for Mark earlier. I don't see any blood sugars.
No, I can't see any at the moment. Glenn's just joined onto the speaker panel. Just wondered if you've got anything you wanted to say, Glenn. Oh, he's gone.
Well, okay, sure. We'll leave it at that and get to bed early, because you know what? Sleep is another thing that I do to mind myself too, because it helps with what I eat the next day as well.
Well,
Totally, I heard.
Carry on, Mark.
Totally, before I was listening to some I think it might have been a Type 1 Talks thing, and they said that if you get less than 4 hours sleep a night, that can affect your insulin resistance.
Yeah.
So the amount of sleep you get in the evening at night can either help or hinder you.
Well, that might have been why I was high all day yesterday then.
4 o'clock in the morning, Claire. I'm just jealous. I'm actually just jealous.
That's all right. Just wait till we come over to Derry, Mary. We'll have you out till 4 o'clock in the morning too.
Oh my gosh.
Mary, sorry, just before you go, I was just wondering, would it be worthwhile maybe doing like a CFT session on Diabetes Chat, Not
Yeah.
necessarily like a session, but like a kind of like intro to what CFT is, with maybe like a couple of exercises, and maybe the same with ACT as well, to explain what it is and an example of some of the sort of things that we might do in like an ACT therapy session.
I think that'll be
Jack,
amazing.
that sounds absolutely fabulous.
Will we'll check the schedule and then see what we've got, where the gaps are, Jack, and share them with you and see if you fit into any of those. That would be phenomenal, actually. That would be
It would be really good, wouldn't it, Mary?
really helpful.
Perhaps we need to do it on. Perhaps we need to do it on our Whizzy Bang StreamYard sessions. That might be a useful thing as well for that, if that's something that may help better with it.
It's a bit.
Hey, we've got Tony. Tony's here as well.
Oh, bear with us.
Coming in
We've got to
late.
get Tony up to the panel before we go.
Oh, this is like the Irish
Uh,
long goodbye.
Yeah.
Well, the solar version, boo.
Bye bye, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye.
While we're waiting for Tony to come up, Jack, can I just thank you for joining in tonight and for all the information you've shared, because it's been really, really good.
Thank you so much, Jack. Yeah.
No, of course, and I really look forward to doing like a sort of intro to CFT and then maybe an intro to ACT later. See how people react to it, and I'd actually be very interested in people's feedback on it, because obviously these models are not type 1 specific, and I'm trying to, or diabetes specific, I should say, and I'm trying to make them more diabetes specific. So it would help me as well.
Let's plan it then, and we'll see what way we can do feedback from it after, and on both sessions, and see what way we could leverage it as to be as useful for you as possible, and for us. Like, so that's brilliant. We'll be in touch.
I think
Brilliant.
at the moment we're probably looking at June.
Have you got the schedule?
I'm just calling it up on my iPad if it'll work. Yeah, with June and July we're looking at booking now. So I'll ask Tom to get in touch with you, Jackie,
Perfect.
and we'll book it in for you.
And that's a good time to plan it as well.
Yeah, so it'll be great. It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Definitely fun and helpful.
Actually, Jackie, I'll send you the dates that we've got across available.
Brilliant.
Just let me know, and we'll put you in the schedule.
Yeah.
Great.
I think that's a given.
Cool. Speak soon then.
Thanks, Jack.
Okay then, Jack.
Bye.
Cheerio.
Hello, Tony. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm currently driving, so yeah.
Oh.
But this is amazing. This is amazing that I can drive and listen. Wow. Technology.
Brilliant.
I'm not sure if I can do it in my car.
Yeah,
no, I don't think I could do it in my car, but
this is Mrs. Fox's posh Audi, whatever it is, with Bluetooth.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's very very plush and stuff. So
she deserves it. Yeah, I am changing my car this year. My little Ladybird car is just like, she's not doing well. She's due for MOT and she's not going to pass.
So exciting though. It's great having new cars and stuff. I love it.
And you're a big car man.
No, not really. Not yeah. What I've found is that I've become Mr. Man who knows all about cars since Madeline's had her car. So
yeah, okay.
Things like tires and changing oil and stuff like that. But honestly, I was into guitars as a kid, not into cars. So I don't know anything. It's been having to work out how to change a wheel and stuff. So
do you know, I changed my first tire there a couple of weeks ago. I was coming up. Okay. I was actually over in London, and I flew home. It wasn't my own. I'd coming home from the airport. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and literally about 2 miles away from home, I saw a white Mercedes Jeep parked with its lights on, and it looked weird. Like, and it was kind of just on the side of the road. The driver's door was open, and then as I just looked weird coming along, and I was slow coming off the roundabout and going along, and there was a man leaning over the steering wheel, and I actually thought the man was having a heart attack, and I pulled in and reversed back. There was no traffic on the road, but it was a kind of dual carriageway. Reversed back and got out. And it wasn't that he was having a heart attack. He had a flat tire, but he was in his 60s, late at night, coming home from one of his sons or daughter's house, and he had a flat tire, and he wasn't able to change it himself. And
Okay.
I know, and it was, and you wouldn't normally stop. So I know how to change tire now. I can do a tire. I knew how to change it, but I had never had to change one. So,
I've never had to change one. The couple of punches I've had over the years have been literally luckily enough on run flats. So that tends to, I've crept home once, only 3 or 4 miles from home.
yeah.
But yeah, I've had a blowout at 80 miles an hour on the M6 toll, which was quite spectacular.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that was on my way to a gig, and I had to wait 2 hours for the tyre people to turn up. And so literally, I got to the gig, and the bride was having a meltdown because we were so late to go on. So yeah, that was exciting. But to hear it go pop in the outside lane, and all of a sudden it was quite a brown trouser time.
Lucky because they're very dangerous.
Yeah, I mean it was. I think, particularly as I said, because there were run flats, it probably kept enough strength in the tyre. Because basically with run flat tyres, they have reinforced outers, so the tyre can kind of go and the pressure goes, but it maintains a stiffness on the walls of the tyre.
Yeah,
but of course,
I've never heard of them before.
Yeah. Well, nowadays, I mean, particularly we've had BMWs for a while, and particularly BMWs nowadays always come with run flats from new, because there's no space for a spare tyre. So it's supposed to be able to get you to limp home, but it depends how the tyre goes. If it's just a puncher, great, but if the side walls go, or the tyre starts to you're not going to get
depends.
home. So it does.
So there you go. You're joining the
car.
car.
This isn't diabetes. This isn't diabetes chat. This is car chat.
Car chat. Yeah, you don't have your setup today in the same way.
So how's stuff been tonight? Oh, I'm going to listen to it back.
We've had a different chat tonight, you see, Tony, because Ginger couldn't make it, so we've just been chatting about it ourselves, and Jack joined as well, and we've had a really different chat, but a really interesting chat. And Jack has really kindly and really nicely talked about doing a CFT session, which is a compassion focus
therapy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And listen back to that bit anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not actually interesting. It's actually amazing, and it's something that we're like. Do you know when you have negative, you talk to yourself negatively, Tony, and you do that, like this type of therapy. I'm not even going to do I'm going to give it mulched up words, but like it helps you be more aware and more compassionate, more self-compassionate, and hear yourself say those words.
It's really difficult though, isn't it? That whole thing about, you know, you wouldn't talk to, you know, another, you know, somebody else you love in the same way that we tend to speak to ourselves most of the time.
Yeah, because like we were kind of talking about what we do to reset ourselves, and I was saying like I pre-bolus and things, and then Claire really normally said like I talk to you guys, like I talk about it, and this type of therapy is like what talking about it, because when you know you talk about something in peer support, like people make it more clear about what you're talking about. You're like, well, I know you're saying that, like, but that's not true. You're not a failure. You're not this type of thing. Whereas you call yourself those things. And
and perhaps, you know, perhaps really we shouldn't be talking to ourselves. Well, nothing really about it. We shouldn't be talking to ourselves in that way. It's quite destructive.
Yeah.
But I think we've become so used to, as type 1s, we've become so used to analysing and kind of trying to rectify things, and
that's
you know,
it, exactly.
and so
micromanage things.
So judgmental. So like we get so much feedback that is taken in the wrong context will give us a negative feedback. And this therapy, like Jack uses with diabetes, so it makes so much sense when you see all that continuously. I think my brain has gone to mush, guys, so I can't get the words out of my mind or into my mouth.
No change there, Mary.
No change there. No change there. Say just different day. I was going to curse.
Just one thing, Tony. It's a good job we didn't come down to Birmingham on Saturday night.
And so,
I got home at good.
What happened?
Oh, we just went out, and Richard piped up about 11:30. Should we go meet Tony in Birmingham and go to the casino there?
Oh God!
So I got home at 4:15 on the Sunday morning.
Crazy people.
Crazy people. Wow.
It was a good night.
You like, I thought
wild and young.
Could go, and it's just awesome, awesome. Just I'm absolutely in awe of you all.
Do you know those nights are always the best, though? You know, when like they're so spontaneous.
Well, it wasn't as if we'd planned anything till Friday night, and I was having such an awful week. I just messaged.
Is it post? Yeah.
Messaged
Is it
Tom
post
and Rich and
COVID
said, "Are you free?"
Do you think post COVID we've become less instinctive about doing things like that? You know, particularly nowadays, I wouldn't ever dream of you know, if ever I go out, it always takes, you know, at least a few days to kind of get myself into the right, you know, the right mood. And I think the older we get, the less instinctive,
spontaneous.
You know, I can't, you know, the reality of what time am I going to get back? Oh, I've got the following morning, I'm going to feel rubbish. And there's always reasons that there's always reasons I find to not do something rather than reasons to do something. You know, and perhaps that's you guys doing that and enjoying it so much, that's perhaps a lesson.
It is.
It's just.
It is.
Well, just to give you fair warning, it's my birthday in a fortnight.
Oh dear.
So there is being a night planned, but I don't know when.
Okay.
It might be that weekend that we're all somewhere.
Okay, yeah, okay,
But I'll keep you all informed.
fabulous.
Sounds really good. A couple of weeks' time then, or in the future?
In the future, in April.
Lovely, lovely. Right, guys, I am gonna hit the hay, and I was streaming this tonight, like from my laptop, and I think it's still streaming, so I'm gonna end the stream now. And so thanks so much, everybody, for making the chat what it was, and
it's been a fabulous night, Mary. Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed it. Have you enjoyed it, Claire?
I have loved it. It has been really informative and really interesting.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from you and Mark, actually, and from Jack, that I didn't know, and I'm grateful for that. But
I just want to say thank you again to Jack, because it's been really good, and look forward to catching up with the sessions that we're going to plan for you.
Yeah. Okay, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Okay. And you have a good week, everybody. Next week is open forum with Tom and I. And I think we've got some of the people from ATTD coming on to talk.